A soon-to-be engaged Jewish couple, Yaron Liskinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram, working for the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., were fatally shot after leaving the Capitol Jewish Museum. The man arrested for shooting the couple, Elias Rodriguez, was heard shouting "Free Palestine" as he was being detained. The attack has left the Jewish community reeling, and it highlights the very real threat that anti-Semitism poses here in our own country and across the world. Here to discuss this, Elan Carr. He's the CEO of the Israeli-American Council and former U.S. Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. Elan, welcome to Washington Watch.
Tony, good to be with you. I wish it were under better circumstances.
Last time we were together, I think it was actually at the Capitol for Benjamin Netanyahu and his speech to a joint session of a Congress, a much better occasion. But this is something you and I, in fact, our first meeting, I was chairing the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, a hearing on global anti-Semitism, and you were with the previous Trump administration. You testified. This is not something I expected here on the streets of America. I'll be very frank.
Well, you know, you mentioned the Prime Minister's speech on Capitol Hill. And Tony, you remember well what that was like, right? They had to turn Capitol Hill into a military encampment, basically, and close the entire hill. And then there was tremendous violence. There was vandalism and violence and burning of American and Israeli flags in the street. And so we see, even in our nation's capital, the capital really of the free world, anti-American and anti-Semitic forces running amok. And I think that's the story here. I mean, this is more than just another incident. This is a major watershed moment in this fight we have to fight against Jew hatred. We have to understand how dangerous it is. We have to understand how prevalent it is. And we have to understand where this comes from. And when you look at Mr. Rodriguez's background, and you look at the ideological indoctrination from which he fed to get to this point, it's very clear that we've got a real fight on our hands, and we need to stop the indoctrination of Americans in anti-American, anti-Western, and yes, anti-Semitic values that contradict the very spiritual DNA of our civilization.
And as we are going back, making reference to that commission hearing that I chaired, Christians, people of other faiths other than the Jewish faith, need to realize that that's the canary in the coal mine, which was part of the testimony of that commission, was that when the Jewish people are being attacked, that's just the first wave. And the Christians will be next. And, you know, I know the violence, and we've seen what happened on college campuses, but to come to a point where someone kills someone in cold blood and then, you know, shouts "Free Palestine," I mean, we've reached a new level, as you've pointed out. This is a watershed moment of a calloused culture that this has to be not just more speeches. I will tell you, I was a little disappointed when what I'm seeing out of Israel. The Israeli politicians seem to be fighting, blaming each other. This is a time we've got to come together and denounce this one and all.
I couldn't agree with you more, Tony. I think our only answer is to unify around our shared values. The good guys, those with a spiritual commitment to a better world for our children, have to unite. And by the way, this is a moment to unite. I mean, look, let's think about this. Yes, this was an anti-Semitic attack on a Jewish event in a Jewish institution, the Capitol Jewish Museum. But you know, one of the two victims here is a Christian Zionist who paid the ultimate price for his love of Israel and the Jewish people. And so this has to be a unifying moment. We have to understand that all of us are in the crosshairs. And we are facing a despicable, violent, evil enemy that is bloodthirsty. We saw that on October 7th. We saw that on October 8th, and the global reaction of glee and joy at the murder of 1,200 Jews with medieval barbarity. And we see it today. We see it today in the United States. And that has to be the message here. And another thing, Tony, I want to talk about this Free Palestine. You know, the New York Times, once again, getting it wrong, reported that that he was arrested uttering a pro-Palestinian statement. He wasn't uttering a pro-Palestinian statement. Free Palestine, let's be clear, Free Palestine is not a pro-Palestinian statement. It is an anti-Semitic call for genocide against the Jewish people. That's what that is. And we have to understand that when Americans are indoctrinated in anti-Semitic genocidal hate, they are being ruined. A generation of American kids are going to be ruined and raised in a culture of violence and aspiration to jihad, which is what we saw. And so we've got to fight this indoctrination of America's young people.
Elan, we need to have a longer conversation about this, because I think what I see anti-Semitism is, at its core, is a hatred of God. And it's been fostered and fomented in this country by pushing God out of our culture and out of our country. And the Jewish people are most closely identified with the Judeo-Christian God. And that's what it is at its core. And we have to come together and stand with one another. And we do. At the Family Research Council, we stand with our friends in the Jewish community and the nation of Israel. Elan, we're out of time, but I do want to get you to come back on. We need to talk more about this and talk about how we address these underlying issues, because we cannot sustain this as a country.
Correct. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for your moral leadership. And together we will win. That's the Israeli motto. Biyachad ninatzeach, together we'll win. I believe that. Together we'll win. This is the time to unite and to win.
Amen.